An Indian Navy vessel intercepted an Iranian fishing boat that had been taken over by Somali pirates in the Arabian Sea. Now, India diverted 2 warships for the maritime security mission. After hours of intense anti-pirate tactical measures, all in keeping with standard operating procedures, all crew members on board FV Al-Kambar of 23 Pakistani nationals have been safely rescued. The 9 Somali pirates are to be brought to India to face trial. The Iran-flagged fishing vessel was reportedly attacked by at least 9 armed pirates around 90 nautical miles southwest of Socotra. The Socotra archipelago is in the northwest Indian Ocean near the Gulf of Aden. In recent months, the Indian Navy has increased its vigilance due to increased attacks on merchant ships near the Gulf of Aden. The Indian Navy has carried out several operations to thwart piracy in the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean region. Earlier this month, the Indian Navy intercepted the pirate-besieged MV Ruin and freed it from the clasps of Somalian pirates by forcing them to surrender. The INS Kolkata safely evacuated the 17 crew members from the merchant vessel, which pirates were using as a mothership. All 35 pirates surrendered. Earlier, the Indian Navy also responded to a distress call from the Gulf of Aden, where a merchant vessel was set ablaze after being hit by a missile. The Navy rescued the 21 crew members, which also contained 1 Indian national. A report says the US has authorized the transfer of billions of dollars worth of bombs and fighter jets to Israel. And this comes even as Washington publicly expresses concerns about an anticipated Israeli military offensive in Rafah. Now, the report says that the new arms package includes more than 1,800 Mk-84 2000 lb bombs and 500 Mk-82 500 lb bombs. Now, the package comes as Israel faces strong international criticism over its continued bombing campaign and ground offensive in Gaza. Some members of President Joe Biden's party have also called on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to cut dependence on US military aid. Biden has, however, vowed continued support for Israel despite an increasingly public rift with Netanyahu. Now, Washington gives $3.8 billion in annual military assistance to Israel, its longtime ally. The White House declined to comment on the weapons transfers. The weapon delivery to Israel follows a visit to Washington by the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant this week. On his visit, Gallant discussed Israel's weapons, in fact the weapons needs, with US counterparts. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has authorized an Israeli negotiating delegation to travel to Qatar and Egypt in the coming days. Israeli Prime Minister's office said in a statement that this is to hold talks on the release of hostages still held in Gaza. Last week, Israel's Mossad director David Barnea and Shin Bet director Ronen Bar returned to Israel without a breakthrough in indirect ceasefire, hostage talks with Hamas.
שתוכננו להתבצע כנגד יהודים או ישראלים בכל רחבי העולם.
Now, days after the pro-Beijing lawmakers in Hong Kong Parliament passed the new security law, also called Article 23, the United States has said that it is taking steps to impose fresh visa restrictions on Hong Kong officials. Now, taking on China, the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a post on social media platform X, talked about imposing severe curbs and restrictions, and I quote, We have imposed visa restrictions on Hong Kong officials responsible for the intensifying crackdown on rights and freedoms. The Hong Kong Legislative Council passed the law called Article 23 unanimously on March 19th, after 2 weeks its initial introduction. The newly passed law covers treason, sedition, espionage, and acts endangering national security. The Article 23 also allows for trials to be held behind closed doors, giving police the right to detain suspects for up to 16 days without any charges. As per the law, if an individual is found guilty of treason or colluding with external forces to weaken public infrastructure, he in fact could be sentenced to life imprisonment. Officials in Hong Kong have justified the implementation of Article 23, saying offences highlighted in the legislation are also covered under similar laws in Western nations. While the critics say that the new law is another tool to crack down on dissent and an attempt to take repression to the next level. But a group of immigrant workers gathered at the Baltimore offices of CASA, a Maryland-based immigration advocacy group, where they mourned the lives lost in the bridge collapse. This comes as a crane that can lift 1,000 tons, described as one of the largest on the eastern seaboard, arrived near the site of a collapsed highway bridge. As crews prepared to begin clearing wreckage that is hindering the search for 4 workers missing and presumed dead.
And I've been informed by the U.S. Navy that they are supplying us with 4 heavy lift cranes. 2 have already arrived, 1 arrives tonight, and the 4th is arriving on Monday. One of the cranes is called the Chesapeake 1000, and it can lift about 1,000 tons. But the big part, and one of the challenges, is that the key bridge, which sits on top of the vessel right now, that weight is somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 tons. So our team needs to cut that truss into sections in a safe, in a responsible, and in an efficient way before it can lift those pieces out of the water.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says that forensic operations technicians assisted in analyzing data that were acquired from the Corps of Engineers survey boat, the Catlet, in the Baltimore harbor. The Corps say that crew members used sonar equipment to determine the location of debris and search for submerged vehicles from the collapsed Francis Scott Key Bridge.
At this time, there is no indication of active releases from the vessel, nor of the presence of materials that are hazardous to human health in the water. However, monitoring is ongoing, and we will work through the unified command to report and review and be transparent of any results from this monitoring as they become available.
According to Moore, equipment on hand will include 7 floating cranes, 10 tugboats, 9 barges, 8 salvage vessels, and 5 Coast Guard boats within hours of Moore's request for emergency funds. The U.S. government had awarded Maryland $60 million to clear debris and begin rebuilding the bridge. Meanwhile, new traffic camera footage was released, which captured moments before a cargo ship crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. The images showed how the vehicles were stopped from passing over the bridge just minutes before the accident. Baltimore's thrumming port has long been an economic engine that provides thousands of jobs for Maryland residents, even as other local businesses have shuttered and industrial production has declined. Well, it has been a week since the terror attack rocked Moscow when gunmen killed 144 men, women and children and wounded dozens at the Crocus City Hall in the outskirts of the Russian capital. Residents of Moscow and neighboring areas continue to pay condolences through flowers and toys at the memorial outside the concert venue. Russia hasn't seen a terror attack like it in the last 2 decades. Dozens of mourners continue to gather outside the theatre daily to pay condolences, expressing pain and anger.
It feels very hard, everything that is going on. It's hard to comprehend that there is evil in this world. This is terrible. Now we all need to deal with the pain of loss.
This is a tragic event and everyone's life has changed. Everyone starts to appreciate the lives of their loved ones and relatives and all who are close to them.
Gunmen stormed the Crocus City Hall on the evening of the 22nd of March and sprayed concert goers with bullets during a performance by the Soviet-era rock group Picnic. It is the bloodiest attack that has taken place in Russia since the 2004 Beslan school siege. Later, the terror group Islamic State claimed the responsibility for the deadly attack. The United States also said that it had warned the Russian establishment of intelligence about the attack earlier this month. In fact, significantly, Russian President Vladimir Putin has not publicly mentioned the terror outfit in connection with the attackers, who he said had been trying to escape to Ukraine. He has squarely blamed Ukrainian nationalists for the terror attack. On March 25th, 4 terror suspects belonging to Tajikistan were produced in court, out of which 3 pleaded guilty before the court of law. The court ruled that the men should be held in free trial custody until the 22nd of May.
Обвиняемому Файзову Мухаммад Сабиру Закирчоновичу меру пресечения в виде заключения под...
Chinese investigators are in Pakistan to probe the killing of 5 Chinese nationals in a suicide attack earlier this week. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi met the team at Beijing's embassy in Islamabad. He then briefed them on the investigation so far. China lashed out at Pakistan, saying that the investigation is not to be done by Pakistan alone. A Chinese team would be monitoring the probe earlier. The Chinese government asked Pakistan to hunt down perpetrators faster and take practical and effective measures to ensure the safety of the lives of Chinese personnel in Pakistan.
China has made its solemn position on this incident very clear. After the incident, the Foreign Ministry and the Chinese Embassy in Pakistan immediately launched an emergency response mechanism and quickly carried out emergency response work. In Beijing and in Islamabad, we have been in close contact with Pakistan, asking them to expedite the urgent need to severely punish the perpetrators, comfort the deceased, and take effective measures to ensure the safety of the Chinese personnel in Pakistan.
Tuesday's incident was the 3rd major attack in little over a week on China's interests in the South Asian nation. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the latest attack, in which a suicide bomber rammed a vehicle into a convoy of Chinese engineers working on a hydropower project at Dasu in Pakistan's northwest. Dasu, the site of a major dam, has been attacked in the past as well. In 2021, a bus blast killed 13 people and 9 Chinese were among them. The latest suicide attack on Tuesday followed a March 20th attack on a strategic port used by China in the southwestern province of Balochistan. Beijing has poured billions of dollars into infrastructure projects in Pakistan. On March 25th, there was an assault on a naval airbase, also in the southwest. Both attacks were claimed by the Baloch Liberation Army. Beijing has invested more than $65 billion in infrastructure projects as part of its wider Belt and Road initiative. For now, the Chinese companies have suspended work on 3 dams in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Dasu and Diamer Basha dams being the latest. Some 991 Chinese engineers were working on these projects who have been told to stop working. Some 6,000 local workers were also engaged in these projects. They've all been asked to stay at home. Geographically, Pakistan lies at the head of the Gulf of Aden. Ironically enough, though, it is the Indian Navy that is carrying out rescue operations against pirates operating in the region and rescuing Pakistani nationals in the process. Maldives President Mohammad Muizzu has again turned his guns on India. Muizzu has now said that his predecessor, Ibrahim Mohammed Soli, operated on orders from a foreign diplomat. Muizzu further said that the main opposition party, the Maldivian Democratic Party, which was in power from 2018 to 2023, failed to protect Maldives' independence, leaving it in the hands of a foreign country. No mentions of which country, but the signals are clear. The comments come in the backdrop of Muizzu's anti-India rhetoric. Last year, less than 24 hours after taking oath as the president, Muizzu formally requested India to withdraw 88 military personnel from his country by March 15th. The first batch has already left the archipelago nation. Meanwhile, opposition leaders in Maldives have slammed Muizzu for his anti-India pivot. Former Maldivian President Mohammed Soli has stated that in order to overcome financial obstacles, Muizzu must cease being stubborn and engage in conversation with neighbors. Just last week, the Maldivian president had requested New Delhi for debt relief measures. In an interview, he said that he hopes India will accommodate debt relief measures for the Maldives in the repayment of the hefty loans taken from the country over consecutive governments. He further outlined on how India will continue to hold a strong influence in the Maldives. The back and forth in Muizzu's stance comes as the nation heads to polls on April 21st.